I'm Bianca Ficini in for Christian Bryant. We're following developments out of Ukraine tonight with in-depth reporting and unique perspectives on the crisis playing out there. So let's start with the basics. Russia launched attacks on Ukraine early Thursday in what Ukraine is describing as a full-scale invasion. It's the largest attack by one state against another in Europe since World War II. Russia fired airstrikes across the country, leaving devastation and chaos on streets in many of Ukraine's largest cities. Ukrainians have been seeking shelter or looking to flee as Russia's invasion pushes forward, and Russian troops have entered Ukraine on three fronts: from the east with its majority ethnic Russian population, through Russian-occupied Crimea in the south, and through its own border with Ukraine and through neighboring Belarus. In the first few hours of the invasion, Ukrainian officials reported dozens of military and civilian deaths. We've seen a quick and emphatic response from the U.S., though. President Biden announced the U.S. would implement sweeping economic sanctions on Russia in response to the invasion.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
Russia's invasion has already caused disruptions that Americans might soon see at home. Oil prices topped $105 a barrel in trading Thursday as the price hit its highest mark since 2014. And those price hikes may soon hit Americans at the pump, potentially worsening the jump in gas prices in recent months. So why is this happening? Well, it goes back to Russia not taking the word of Ukraine and its allies on its face. Russian President Vladimir Putin described the offensive as an operation meant to, quote, demilitarize Ukraine. It has railed against Ukraine and its allies in the US and Europe, with concerns that Ukraine would join the defense alliance called the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. NATO allies have repeatedly said that Ukraine is not ready to currently join the group, saying it needs to address issues of political corruption. And while Ukraine isn't joining NATO anytime soon, NATO has bolstered its troop presence in Eastern Europe with an eye toward protecting NATO member countries in the region. And Ukraine has not actively built up troops on the border with Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky went on national television in Ukraine Wednesday night to urge peace in the region and said his efforts to connect with President Putin to reach peace were ignored. Russia, meanwhile, had amassed over 100,000 troops surrounding Ukraine in the days leading up to the invasion. And Russian disinformation has played a key role in both justifying the invasion and now in the Russian effort to topple Ukraine's government. Days before these attacks began, Russia recognized the independence of separatist movements in Donetsk and Luhansk, two regions in eastern Ukraine with large ethnic Russian populations. As Russia continues its invasion of Ukraine by land and by air, Vladimir Putin's official state news agencies and online allies have been waging their own campaign of information warfare. Their videos have racked up millions of views online, but upon closer review, many of these videos can be debunked and proven to be hoaxes, revealing manufactured propaganda meant to vilify or demoralize Ukraine's government and military as they face attack from Russia. Newsy correspondent Jake Godin, who heads up our award-winning visual investigation series Newsy and Bellingcat, brings us an open-source analysis of Russia's information warfare.
One of the first prominent suspect videos to pop up during the rising tension between Ukraine and Russia was this one, which allegedly shows members of the Ukrainian breakaway region known as the Donetsk People's Republic confronting Polish-speaking Ukrainian saboteurs whose goal was to blow up a chlorine tank in separatist-held territory. The incident was reported out by Russia's state-run TASS news agency and shared in pro-Russian circles on social media as a matter of fact, claiming that the footage was retrieved from the body of a dead soldier. But there are a few problems. Specifically, the EXIF metadata, which is essentially standard under-the-hood data stored in most images and videos, shows that the video was created February 8th, 10 days before it was released. The explosion sounds in the video are also suspect. This too has a clue hidden inside the original video's metadata, where there's a file name for another video. A quick search on YouTube reveals the same video, which shows a Finnish Defense Forces live-fire exercise recorded more than 10 years ago. Turns out, an explosion in that video very closely matches one of the explosions in the saboteur video. Russia's government has claimed Ukrainian aggression in a few other reports, including the supposed helmet cam footage showing an attack on Russia's Rostov Oblast, which borders eastern Ukraine. Russia claimed it killed 5 Ukrainian saboteurs in the operation, as well as destroyed 2 Ukrainian armored vehicles. Russian reporters ended up going to the scene after the fact, and another video showed Russian soldiers approaching and examining the destroyed vehicles. The only problem here is that the incident took place at the border where separatists-controlled territory meets Russia's territory. That'd mean Ukraine's military would have had to traverse around 25 miles of enemy territory before reaching Russia's border. These weren't the only attempts from Russian state media to set up Ukraine as the aggressor in this war. One lingering question is what sort of impact Russia's information war has, both internationally and for its own population.
My impression is one potential narrative line was these war crimes tribunals or investigations or accusations of genocide, but none of this is getting any traction because I think we're well past the point where you're going to generate a lot of war enthusiasm in Russia. But that's past the point anyway, because the system is now so centralized towards Putin that the opinion of the public is now largely peripheral as to whether a war decision is going to be made or sustained.
These are only a few drops of the flood of disinformation that has come out so far. Our partners at Bellingcat have put together a public spreadsheet documenting the reported incidents leading up to the conflict, and both of us are keeping track of any civilian casualties coming out of the war. Knowing what events are real and which ones are more likely disinformation is important for understanding just how the situation continues to unfold across Ukraine, and how the Kremlin will continue to justify its invasion of its neighbor.
To paint a picture of the scope and scale of Russia's attack and how it's impacting the region, reporters are stationed in Ukraine and its neighboring countries, including our very own national correspondent, Jason Bellini. He's located near the border of Poland and Ukraine, where U.S. troops are stationed. Jason, can you tell us more about the U.S. military directive in Poland and about this growing humanitarian crisis on the border there?
Hey, Bianca, let's start in Ukraine. That's where my day began, in the northern city of Lviv. There, people woke up to an air raid siren. Same was true in many of Ukraine's large cities. It was at that moment that, for many people, the gravity of the situation and what it meant for them and their families seemed to register. Within a few hours, lines formed at gas stations. One person I spoke with said he waited for over 3 hours. Then there were long lines at the ATM machines. It appears that many people before this morning were kind of in denial that something so unthinkable, yet so accurately predicted by Western intelligence, was actually happening. My translator got a phone call from his wife who told them the postman handed her papers requiring him to register to enlist in the military. He seemed to be taken by surprise. What I got to see firsthand today was the situation at the border with Poland. A line of cars started several miles before the border checkpoint, and people were just parked there, moving but a few car lengths every 15 minutes or so. We don't know how long at that rate it will take the folks I saw to flee their country, but it appears likely that it could require 1 or more nights sleeping in their cars in the frigid winter of Western Ukraine. As for your question about the U.S. troops in Poland, I spoke with the U.S. Army official who told me they're now preparing to assist at temporary safe havens that are being established, with hotels near the border at capacity. He said it was just a matter of time before the need for assistance becomes critical for those lucky or patient enough to get out. Bianca?
Thank you, Jason. So that gives us a look at things that are happening alongside a portion of the border on the western part of the country. In Kharkiv, a city in eastern Ukraine, people are trying to figure out their next steps as well. Our partners at the Washington Post video team were on the ground there early Thursday morning, talking to people about what they plan to do.
My wife woke me up and told me that there were like bombings. And maybe like 2 hours later, or 1 hour later, that's when I also heard it. Today I had like five bombings and no shootings. I've not heard any shooting, and I've seen like videos on Telegram of like smoke from the bombings.
I woke up first at 5 a.m. in the morning and I heard these shooting sounds. And after I started to check Telegram channels, and I wrote messages to my friends in Odessa, Kiev, and Dnipro, and they also confirmed that they also heard this sound. So for me, it was no doubt anymore that something happened, and I gave up my husband.
First of all, I would say personally that I'm a little bit disappointed at the way like the government handled this thing, because they kept telling us till yesterday that we should stay calm, that nothing's going to happen. And I knew it. I knew that something was going to happen. Nobody's prepared. Everybody's panicking. Everybody's running out. They could have prepared us better. So, like, this thing happening now, like, just makes me a little bit, like, I'll say upset that it was really, and also it was probably prepared. And secondly, I'm upset that the government is saying nothing. Like, they're just silent.
I have a ticket, and I'm supposed to fly tomorrow in the morning. But now I know that airport in Kharkiv closed, so I don't know what to do. For now, we will see.
I don't know even how to describe how we feel. We just like you can't just hope, you know. Like you can't just hope that, you know, like for me, they're a priority. So I just hope that they can go out of here. You know, I'm a man. I can find a way. I can do something. I can hide. I can run. I can do anything. But with a baby, it's impossible. So the sooner they get out of here, the better.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're digging into world reaction on Ukraine. And there's a lot to unpack, so stay tuned. Welcome back to In the Loop. As Russia launched a wide-ranging attack on Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin said anyone who attempted to interfere would lead to consequences you have never seen. So is anyone backing Russia, and what are other world leaders saying? Here's a rundown of the international response. China denies supporting Russia's attack on Ukraine after saying earlier that Russia's security concerns were legitimate. In a press briefing on Thursday, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry said that Russia is a powerful country and doesn't need China or other countries to offer military assistance, and also noted that they won't be like the US and provide large amounts of military equipment to Ukraine.
China and Russia are comprehensive strategic partners, and Ukraine is also our friendly and cooperative partner. We will carry on normal trade with both countries, including trade of energy sources, based on the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence and our friendly ties.
Chinese officials say they hope the tensions can be eased as soon as possible through negotiation. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan, who has had good relations with the leaders of both Russia and Ukraine, said in a statement that he's, quote, sincerely saddened by Russia's decision to invade Ukraine. In an address Thursday in Turkey's capital city, Erdogan said, quote, this step, which we see as being against international law, is a heavy blow to regional peace, tranquility, and stability. Erdogan had previously offered to be a mediator between Ukraine and Russia earlier this month, but Putin never accepted that offer. Now Erdogan is siding with Ukraine as they defend themselves against Russian attacks. Meanwhile, Ukraine has asked Turkey to close 2 waterways connecting the Black and Mediterranean seas to prevent Russian ships from getting through. As a bit of added context here, Turkey is a member of NATO, the same alliance of countries Putin vocally opposed at the outset of this conflict. The European Union condemned Russia for bringing war back to Europe and said these are the darkest hours the continent has experienced since the Second World War. The EU plans to impose tougher sanctions in response to this attack. They're working to target specific sectors of the Russian economy by blocking their access to key technologies and markets. Their initial round of penalties were geared toward officials, lawmakers, and banks, but it could take months for these to have a significant impact. In a tweet, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, the European Union stands with Ukraine and its people. Ukraine will prevail. The EU issued a statement demanding Putin stop military operations immediately and to withdraw forces from all of Ukraine. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson called the attack, quote, hideous and barbaric, adding that the UK cannot look away.
It's because we've been so alarmed in recent months at Russian intimidation that the UK became one of the first countries in Europe to send defensive weaponry to help the Ukrainians. Other allies have now done the same, and we will do what more we can in the days ahead.
The UK, along with their allies, are announcing sanctions as well. Our international correspondent Luke Hanrahan is on the ground in London to bring us a bit more context on the response there. Luke, what can you tell us?
Good evening, Bianca. It's been an extremely reactive day when it comes to the actions taken by Europe's leaders. They've been speaking to their parliaments and to their people. They've unleashed a raft of sanctions on Russia here in the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that the assets of all Russian banks will be frozen. They'll be banned from taking part in the UK financial system. 100 companies and individuals, including 5 people in Vladimir Putin's inner circle, have also had their assets frozen. And Aeroflot, the Russian airline, has been banned from landing its planes here in the UK. Mr. Johnson says he'll be working with his allies on the economic, diplomatic and eventually military front to make sure that Vladimir Putin is eventually stopped in his tracks. Back to you, Bianca.